Okay, good morning everybody. My name is Florent. I come from Louvain-la-Neuve in Belgium, and I work with Watimar, Thomas Pardoun, and Eric Mer from INSA Lyon. So today I would like to talk about the effect of the heterogeneities of the microstructure on the development of the damage within the 6000 series aluminium alloys. So first, you probably know that within this kind of aluminium alloys, you can divide the particles within three different families. The first one would be the precipitates, very small particles, usually less than 10 nanometers, which allows to harden the matrix. And then there is the dispersed fluids, a bit bigger, which allows to control the grain size. And then there is the big intermetallic particles, typically of from a few micrometers to 10 or 15 micrometers. And this is those particles which are really bad for the damage tolerant properties. So today I will talk a lot about particles, and when I will be saying particles, I am always talking about these big particles which are bad for the damage properties. So the beginning of this study was we performed the tensile test on three different aluminium alloys, namely 6056, 6061, and 6005A. And what you see is that those three alloys have relatively similar chemical compositions. And what you see is that when you measure the fracture strain, so I'm really talking about the logarithmic ratio between areas at the beginning and at the end of the test, you see that there is a huge differences among these three alloys. So a first typical explanation would be to say that there is the nicking behavior is different. However, if you look at the uniform strain, I mean the strain at which the nicking starts, you see that they follow the same banana trend. So another guess would be to say it could be explained by a difference of particle volume fraction. But if you look in the microstructure, you see that they all exhibit about 1% of particles. So we thought that these differences should come from the heterogeneities of the particle distribution. And in this paper, we developed a model with which we came to the conclusion that these differences can be explained mainly by three key elements. The first one is the size of the particles. If you got smaller particles, you will the probability to find a small defect within the particle decrease, and the stress for nucleation goes higher, and so you get a bigger ductility. Also, there is a huge effect of the initial porosities in these materials, and if you decrease or you get smaller porosities, then you have higher ductility. And finally, there is the particle clustering. Of course, within a cluster, the particles are closer to each other, so this will fasten the coalescence process, and you will lower the ductility. Also, another observation that we made is that for the aluminium 6056, there is a strong anisotropy of the fracture strain. However, if you look at the plastic anisotropy, if you pull in the transverse and the rolling direction, the tensile curve will be quite similar. But you see that the fracture strain is highly different. So this means that they must also have an effect of the microstructure on the fracture strain within this material. So today, I'm going to focus on the experimental results of this study. However, I would like to say that within this paper, we developed a model, a damage model, an automaton cellular type modeling, which reproduces quite well this behavior. And also, I think that the experiments which I am about to show are at the microscales, and this is typically the type of experiments that you need to calibrate the micromechanical models that we use in a local approach. So, because of this observation, we came with the idea that we could improve the ductility of the aluminium 6056, so the one with the lowest ductility and which exhibit anisotropy, by applying friction stir processing. So for those of you who would not be familiar with this technique, it's almost the same that friction stir welding, except that you do not weld anything, you just process the material. So you've got a rotating tool which is mounted on a machine which is similar to a milling machine. It's composed of a shoulder and a pin. You introduce the tool within the material until it gets in contact with the upper surface of the plate, and then the tool is just traveling forward, and you've got this process zone. What we did is that we have performed overlapping passes. So the number of passes is just the number of times that you have processed the material at the same place. And so the goal of this is to break the large intermetallic particles that are present within the 6056 alloys into smaller fragments, since it will increase the nucleation stress. We should also try to close the existing initial porosity, which will increase the ductility, and randomize the particle distribution, which we hope will kind of suppress the anisotropy of the fracture strain. So now we go to the results. I will first talk about the effect of particle size on void nucleation, then pre-existing voids on void growth, and effect of spatial distribution on the void coalescence process. So what we did in the first time is that we took samples in the rolling direction and in the transverse direction. We stop it at different level of stress, and we proceed some quite classical metallographic observation. So we polished the sample until mid-thickness, and we could see if the particles were broken or not. By doing this, you can see that that's what I was telling you earlier, the plastic anisotropy is not big between the two directions. If you look at the fraction of damaged particle, you see that in the rolling direction, for same stress within the matrix, the fraction of broken particle is higher within the rolling direction, because those particles tend to get aligned with the rolling direction, and this is increase the stress mismatch between the particle and the matrix. So for one of those samples, we extracted a tomography sample, and what you get after thresholding and etc. is a binary image made of the broken particles and the matrix here in white. Well, we did a very simple reconstruction algorithm based on the simple criteria, which I'm not going into details now, but at the end we can reconstruct what used to be a particle before it's broken. So you see, for example, here in blue, this is the unbroken particle, and in color, it is a reconstructed particle. So sometimes very big particle broken into multiple fragments, and sometimes just broken into two pieces. And doing this, what we can do is look at the fraction of broken particles as a function of the size of the particles. And you see that, as I said, there is a huge effect, there is a huge size effect. For the big particles, you've got a lot of chance to find a micro defect, and it's almost always broken, and the opposite for very small particles. Also, if you look at the number of fragments for, as a function of the size of the particles, what you see is that for the very big, as the size of the particles increase, the number of fragments, so the number of broken pieces, is also increasing, which is quite intuitive. So now to study the effect of friction stir processing, so as I said, we have done this processing, overpasses, sorry, and the tensile specimen was extracted within the stir zone, and we also have extracted a little tomography specimen at the center of the tensile test. And what you see is that this is the base material, so big particles kind of clustered within the rolling direction, and then after one passery of FSP, you see that you have kind of modified the spatial distribution. However, there's still a lot of big particles, and then after 3 and 6 passes, what you see is that there is a lot of the distribution is completely different, and you have a huge increase of density of particles as you've broken them into multiple fragments. So if you look at the distribution in size, you see that the base materials there is a lot of big particles, and then you reduce as the number of passes of friction stir processing is increasing. So this is a typical image from the tomography. Here, base material, you see that there is a lot of big particles. They are almost always broken. And then here, after 6 passes of friction stir processing, you see small particles, a lot, and then from time to time, still a big particle which is broken. And if we look at the fraction of damaged particle, you see that for some level of stress within the matrix, the fraction of damaged particle is highly decreased. So it means that the nucleation is postponed thanks to the reduction in size of the particles. So now let's have a look at the effect of initial porosity on the damage evolution. So to study this, we performed some in situ tensile tests at Grenoble, and so this is the typical result. So this is the studied part of the specimen. Here you can see the measured tensile curve on the small tensile machine within the tomography. And so on the left is a 3D view, and on the right is a central section of the specimen. What you can see, of course, as you increase the strain, the void grows. At some point, some of them coalesce, and then at the end of the process, you will have a lot of coalescence. You have got a micro crack, and then you finish with a classical shear lip, and the specimen is broken. So a classical way to post-process those type of experiment is to look at the fraction of void within a frame of observation. That's what you get. So at the beginning, the volume fraction is increasing slowly, and then a lot of coalescence occurs, and the void volume fraction goes high. But this is a classical way to do. At UCL, we have developed a new tracking algorithm. So just for information, the algorithm at the beginning has been developed to follow basketball players on the television, and then by working with colleagues, we managed to apply this algorithm on the FSP specimen, the tomography specimen. And what you see is that we can follow each void within the specimen and compute, instead of having an average measurement, we've got how long do I have, sorry?
Yes, no time.
No, sorry. So I will write. So we have decreased the amount of void, sorry, and also we have an effect on the spatial distribution. I will skip since I have no time, sorry. If you have a question. Yeah. So just to show you, that's a very short comment. So with this effect, we have reduced the particle size, so we decrease the nucleation. We have suppressed existing voids, so we, of course, this increase the ductility. And I would like also to show that we have suppressed the anisotropy of the fracture strain. So just the results. As you can see, this is the initial void volume fraction as a function of the number of friction stir processing passes. It decreased a lot, and the nucleation has decreased. So after that, after 6 passes, you see that there is almost 50% of increase of the ductility. And also, because we have randomized the distribution after friction stir processing, what you can see is that, so trust me, there is no more anisotropy within the fracture strain. And with this, I would like to say thank you.